Jobal's perspective. 2687. Terran calendar, 26 years before. I thought I knew what fear was when the front broke. I thought I knew what fear was when a Terran fleet appeared in orbit, close enough to see with the naked eye. I thought I knew what fear was when the drop pods began to rain from the sky, and every city on the planet rang with the sound of guns firing and shells bursting. I was so wrong. Looking at the thick-set man roar in a way that makes even his comrades cower away from him in clear terror, his pupils wildly fluctuating between pinprick specks, and so wide they make his steely grey irises seem black, his teeth bared in a rictus grimace, appearing as a twisted mockery of his species' smile. Looking at this man, I know what fear is. In his right hand, the Terran hefts a roaring plasma scimitar, a refined combination of ruthless Death Order design and advanced Garden Welder technology, that he's swinging more like a club. I'm going to die in this room. I just hope he kills me quickly. Then I see something that I can't make sense of. That one-armed, one-legged captain is walking, calmly, towards his much bigger, much bulkier subordinate. The rabbit man raises his cruel, curved sword over his head to bring it down on his superior, certainly killing him. Why did the captain so recklessly walk towards one so clearly out of his mind? Did he also? At that moment, the psychotic man brings down the screaming weapon, on nothing. The captain simply stepped aside and, with unbelievable agility, grasped the deranged one's wrist with his bionic hand and swung himself under his arm, causing it to twist in such a way as to audibly break. This results in the other man dropping the blade, which sinks, point first, into the floor hallway to its hilt, before it cools down enough to no longer be capable of melting the plascrete. The demented Terran barely seems to notice that his arm has been broken, but does, nonetheless, seem very intent on reaching the one currently using his own physiology against him. Forcing the larger one to the floor by kicking out the back of his knee, the smaller man releases his hand from the other's wrist and raises it to strike him in the back of the head. The punch is as robotically efficient as the hand that delivered it, and causes his head to knock into the hard floor. It's followed up by a barrage of identical punches. The delirious Terran's face gets progressively bloodier, but his wild thrashing continues. You go to sleep now, soldier, says the captain between his strikes, somehow still managing to sound calm in spite of himself. After more precisely efficient punches than I was able to count, the large man goes limp, and the short, svelte, handsome one relents, drawing back up to his feet. He scans the room, face unreadable. Huapaya, Rodriguez, Diaz, Exabera, Quetel. My office, now, announces the man, not raising his voice, not screaming, not even growling, yet somehow burning with more concentrated menace than I would have believed possible before this very moment. The fire soldiers he named quickly scuttle from the room. Zicam, Hernandez, Morales, Garcia, he snaps, his voice loud but much less threatening than before. Not that that's a low bar. Si, senor, answer the soldiers in unison, snapping to attention while looking extremely concerned. Get Private Hill to the medical room and cuff him to his bed, now. Si, senor. Enseguida, senor, responds one of the four, relief obvious as they start to heave Hill to his feet and begin hauling the large, unconscious man towards the medbay. The short, slim Terran man and I are now the only ones left in the thoroughly destroyed cafeteria. He takes a deep inhale and exhale before turning to me, all of his cold fury gone, and saying, I cannot apologize enough, liaison. Are you hurt? With all of the soft-spoken sweetness I've come to expect of him. Trying to convince myself that swooping in my stomach is just the residual nerves from the life-threatening situation I was just rescued from, and nothing else, I answer, No, sir, I'm fine. I begin to pick myself up from where I tripped, but he's already at my side, offering me his biological hand. I hesitate a moment, remembering what I just saw him do with his other one, but then smile and take it. He effortlessly pulls me to my feet, allowing me to brace my hooves against the leg I know to be mechanical. Even if that fact is currently concealed by Durasteel, my heart races. I'm incredibly sorry to ask this of you right now, Liaison, but given that you are the nearest contact with the Frugal authorities, and the fact that you witnessed the incident, would you mind accompanying me to my office to see what my idiotic subordinates have to say for themselves? My mind runs wild when the gorgeous Terran invites me to his office, until he adds that last part, reminding me that this will not be a social call. Of course, sir, I answer carefully. He smiles and says, "Thank you. Oh, and you don't need to call me sir. Vasquez works fine, or Ramon, if you feel like being friendly with a man you just watched beat someone half to death," regretfully. "All right, Ramon," I smile. "Lead the way." Later. "Did I say my office and make yourselves comfortable, you stupid bastards?" snarls the captain upon entering his office, and seeing his subordinates seated at various points around the room. They jump to their feet, revealing him to be the shortest among them, at only 180 centimeters or so, and sheepishly line up in front of his desk. He strides past them, snagging one of the recently occupied chairs and spinning it around to face the opposite way. He takes his seat, and gestures for me to take the one that he just moved to the side of his desk. I sit and he begins. "So, which one of your wastes of a uniform wants to explain to me what exactly just happened?" with a growl. Corporal Huapaya steps forward. "Loco paso, senor. Fuck you." His superior holds up a hand and says, "Stop!" and the man instantly falls silent. Ramon opens one of his desk drawers by means of an electric lock, the key to which seems to be in his bionic, withdraws a small disc, approximately 3 centimeters in diameter, and says, "Put this on. I want our local liaison to hear this." Huapaya looks at me uncertainly before saying, "Es una buena idea, senor? No podría ser esto malo para la imagen. The time to worry about the ramifications for our image was before you allowed a squad member to go on a rampage with the mess, Corporal," shoots back the captain, icily. "As bad as you just made us look, attempting a cover-up of your idiocy will make us look worse. Transparency is the word of the day, so pick up the translator." Reluctantly, the corporal does as instructed, picking up the disc and placing it against his temple. After a moment of Huapaya recovering from the shudders, the captain curtly commands, "Speak." Huapaya begins. "What happened, sir, was that Lieutenant Corporal Snow recently ended her relationship with Private Hill. He's been fairly miserable since then." Here Huapaya stops for a moment, until Ramon irritably prompts, "I'm pretty sure breakups don't cause delirious psychotic rampages, Corporal, so I'm guessing there's more to this little story." Yes, sir. We were out on patrol the other day and he found an intact bottle in a Bondat shop. He used the app on his holo to translate the text and found it was alcohol. "Where is this bottle now?" cuts in the captain, immediately, raising his voice from the level monotone, which was much better at conveying furious disgust. Flinching slightly, Huapaya answers, "Probably still lying on the floor of our billets, sir." Pointing at a tall and slender private, Ramon barks, "Exteberia, secure that bottle and bring it here. Run! Do not stop for anyone. I don't care if you have to run past Kemp or the Dyer themselves. Tell them it's an emergency. Go, now!" Exteberia nods and sprints from the room. We wait several minutes in cold silence. When he returns, bottle in hand, I can feel the vapors burning my lungs from across the room. The private steps forward and places the bottle on the desk. Ramon slides it to me and says, "Can I just get you to confirm what this is? I can't read the label." I pick up the noxious bottle and turn it over, scanning for relevant information a moment before declaring, "This can't be what the private drank." "Why?" asked Ramon immediately. Well, this is 35% ABV. It's a disinfectant. It's meant for sterilizing objects and surfaces. Even if he is Terran, he would be dead if he drank this.
Ramon looks relieved and says, 35% ABV is safe for us to consume, so long as it's ethanol. There's no methanol in it, is there?
I check. Not that I can see on the label.
Good. I thought we might have a second unaccounted for bottle for a moment. And we don't need to worry about Grau going blind, unless I damage his occipital lobe,
he says, relieved, before turning to Huapaya and, back to his disdainful fury, asks,
So, then what happened, Corporal?
Well, sir, we've been dry for months now, and he seemed really excited about it. Obviously, we all mentioned the psychosis, but, he very confidently told us that it didn't affect Denisovans like it did Sapiens. That, for them, it was more like hi, sir. Diaz also suggested that, to get alcohol that pure, it would have to have been distilled a few times. We thought the chances of the toxin actually making it over with the alcohol, through distillation, were fairly slim. I should have confiscated and reported it, sir, but, well, I didn't. I allowed him to keep it. Glaring at Huapaya, Ramon splays his mechanical finger, ceilingward, in a querying gesture, and asks, Tell me, Corporal, did you or any of your squadmates gain an advanced qualification in xenochemistry while I wasn't looking? Huapaya shakes his head and straightforwardly answers, No, sir.
What about one in human biology? Toxicology?
Again, Huapaya answers, No, sir.
Is that so? What about Diaz? Did she have any qualification relating to the manufacture of distilled,
untranslatable word, spirits, meaning concentrated alcohol, meant mainly for drinking?
No, sir,
answers Huapaya somberly.
Well, you must have had something. You must have had some reason you thought it advisable to allow a man taller than the average sapiens, and twice as strong as the average soldier, to keep a looted, oh yes, don't think that slipped by me, bottle of a substance that all planet-side Terrans are expressly forbidden from consuming, purchasing, or possessing. A substance that, in the best-case scenario, will still have had a mind-altering effect on a man with access to firearms and plasma weaponry. You can't have just gambled not only Hill's life, but your own, and those of everyone else on the base on unsubstantiated, and, as it turns out, false rumors and hunches, because you wanted to be kind to a subordinate undergoing relationship blues, can you? You couldn't have been so stupid and reckless.
Huapaya says nothing. Ramon stands and places his fingertips on the desk.
We are occupying this planet, he states, seething. We do not need to give these people any more reasons to hate us. We just finished fighting a war with them.
Una guerra que se los comenzaron, mutters Quackly.
And a war we finished, snaps back Ramon. When you are carrying a weapon, wearing Duracell with the Terran emblem on the shoulder, or even just being Terran on this planet, you are terror. When you loot, people will think Terrans are looters. When you rampage, people will think Terrans are rampagers. When you act with callous disregard for the lives of those around you, that's what they will think of all of us. It's not realistic that the war might recommence anytime soon, but I'm not interested in my grandchildren becoming casualties of the Second Galactic War in 50 years' time, because of the festering resentment brought about by episodes like this. Do you understand?
Si, senor, answer the five, only one of whom I can comprehend.
Good. Now, with that said...
He turns to me, and I'm momentarily terrified into thinking I'm about to be the next object of his ire, before he kindly and wearily asks, Miss Jobul, I assume you will have to report this incident? I'm past the point of being incredulous at the unorthodox way Terrans treat conquered peoples. Occupiers of any other species would have ordered me to keep my mouth shut, or face summary execution, or may have summarily executed me preemptively, and they certainly wouldn't have left any semblance of local power structure, like law enforcement, intact, for me to report to. I clear my throat and answer. I believe this does fall within the scope of incidents that I'm obligated to report, But given that there was no malice afterthought behind it, I think I'll be able to keep the public relations backlash to a minimum. With a relieved sigh and a nod, the handsome man answers, "Terror is in your debt, miss. As for you lot," he turns back to his subordinates. "Huapaya, effective immediately, you are demoted to private. While I ponder what further disciplinary action to take, all 5 of you are to run 100 laps of the parade ground. Don't even think of trying to cheat and stop after less. I'll have someone watching you. Now get out of my sight." As they go, one of the privates says something under his breath. Moo, moo, moo. Seeming to be doing a bad impression of the sound of Fruge. The other 4 chuckle. "Rodriguez!" shouts Ramon furiously. "Congratulations! You just earned another 100 laps for everyone." The 5 groan, but don't argue as they file out. The man leans exhaustedly against the back of his chair, reinforced to be able to take the weight of a human endurosteel, and gives a long, vocalized sigh, his eyes closed and a beautifully sexy expression on his tired face. "How did you know?" I ask. "I'm sorry," he says, opening his eyes and looking to me. "You took one glance around the room and immediately identified that those 5 knew something. How?" He smiles. "Oh, that. I'm what's called a truth wizard." "Truth wizard?" I ask, mildly amused by my translator's explanation of the term. "That's the word for it. I didn't make it up," he chuckles. "It just means I'm very good at reading people's intentions from their facial expressions and body language. That's why they didn't try lying to me. They knew it wouldn't have worked and would have made me angrier than I already was." "Angrier than? I don't believe that's possible," I quip, amused. He laughs. "You might be right." 2691, Terran calendar. 22 years before. I sit at my desk in the station, trying to finish my reports. They are incredibly boring. My mind wanders, as it regularly has for the last few years, to that dashing, handsome captain who was my main contact in the occupation forces for the first year or so. Missing 2 limbs, and yet more of a man than any other I've ever encountered. I recall attending his going-away party. Once he'd moved up the waiting list for getting his arm and leg regenerated, he'd been accepted to a university to study criminology, and had his discharge approved. I recall with some bitterness all the times I made my attraction to him plain, and got politely but firmly turned down. He used the fact that he was an occupier, and that entering into a relationship with a local would be an abuse of power as an excuse to spare my feelings, but I'm fairly sure he just wasn't interested. "Job all!" shouts Chief Bulljaw from across the room. "Yes, Chief?" I answer, leaning back and looking over my shoulder. "I've just got an application for a graduate Terran for a job in the Guard." "A Terran? A Terran wants to work here?" I ask, slightly incredulously. "Yes, and he's provided you as a professional reference." I give a perplexed frown. "What was his name?"